Hey guys, Tyler here with the Kingdoms trading card game, and you are in for a treat today. I have a gameplay battle video between a neutral deck and a card or a deck that I call No Cards for You, which is using a mix of Esther Crest and different Tannis cards and as well as some neutral cards to make your opponent run out of cards. This is going to be my most edited gameplay video that I've ever made, and I'm really excited to see what you guys have to say about it. Let's go ahead and jump into the video. Well, definitely have an exciting one here. As you can see, this is the neutral deck, and these are some of the star cards in the deck. We'll start with Boris of 100 Fists, kind of the leader, the representative of this deck, just in a good 700 attack card. Village Intercessor is going to allow that card draw that you need. Magical Orb is going to give you plenty of Magicka, which definitely specializes on this neutral deck. And then Veteran Soldier is kind of their hardest hitting deck, hardest hitting card for this deck. So hopefully these cards can come through and really lead it to victory. Let's go ahead and jump to the next deck. Here we have the neutral No Cards for You Esther Crest deck, kind of using all these different things, and these are some of the key cards in the deck that show you the gameplay style of it. You can see on the right we have Rock Mover, which is probably one of the best cards in this deck. It's a toss-up between this and Ula the Rebel, but Rock Mover is a great card nonetheless. Defender can be kind of annoying, as well as Lost Traveler. Stats-wise, they're not the best, but great for the engine of the deck. And then Ula the Rebel, you know what it does. Let's go ahead and see how these decks do against each other. Alright, well, this is going to be a special treat. We have not seen on the channel before a gameplay between a neutral deck and the special deck that I've done a Kingdoms deck profile on before, the No Cards for You. The No Cards for You deck, the whole goal of it is to make your opponent literally have no cards. And the deck on the right is a neutral deck where it is exclusively using neutral cards. So you can see on the right hand side, the neutral deck has first shown that it is going to be using Amber Monument for its first sacred. Amber Monument has 1500 health and it gives you Gift 1. Now, there was a recent rule change of Gift behaving the same way on all cards, which is that you have to wait till your counter phase, which is technically your next turn, to receive a Magicka bonus. Now, for Sacreds that have the Gift ability, that makes some of them not as good, and so some rules and modifications have been made to those Sacred cards where if it has a Gift ability, it gives you that Magicka immediately rather than having to wait a second turn. Again, that has 1500 cards, or a 1500 health, Amber Monument does, and we will just wait to see what happens. Joe on the left side is still getting his hand set. You start with 6 cards in hand, and you can mulligan if you want, and each card that you mulligan is 100 damage to your Sacred. You can see Joe on the left has revealed his first Sacred, and the card that he is playing with is Land of Winter, which is a Monument Sacred with 1700 health that says Spirit cards may not be played while this Sacred is revealed. Now, for this particular matchup, that's not going to be a very good card because there is currently no neutral spell or no neutral spirits in the game. So really this Sacred is kind of dead in terms of its effect that it has, but still 1700 health at least, so it's not completely null and void. So you can see we have a little display mat in the middle just to kind of help for the gameplay of actually playing it and for a visual representation, but you can see it on the right hand of your screen. Land of Winter, Joe did mulligan 1 card, and so that's going to drop him down to 1600. So now Joe's going first, and you can see with the hourglass on the left hand side, it's going to indicate whose turn it is at the moment, and he's going to drop a Esther Crest Soldier and immediately play an Empower on it, which is going to add 200 plus 200 to that card, making him a 500. So because Joe went first, he cannot attack with that card, but to already have a 500 defensive card, that's pretty crazy. So now it's on to Joe, or on to Tyler's turn. He draws for turn. He plays a 3 token, which requires him to discard a card. He discards a Disciplined Soldier, and then he'll pass turn back to Joe. So Joe's going to go ahead and draw a card. Already has a very strong board state. Tyler on the right, which is myself, but just to make it easier, I'll refer to myself in the third person. he is sitting at 9 magicka because he has the +1 from Amber Monument and then the +3 from the 3 token. So it's kind of tough to know at what point or which position would you rather be in. Joe's, where you already have a 500/500 with defensive on the field in phase 1, or would you rather have 9 magicka, which could allow you to play some more cards? We'll see. However, with how things are going right now, with Joe playing another Empower spell on this card, it's starting to get into danger territory already right away, as this card is now a 700/700, and there does become a certain point in the game where if a card reaches a certain amount of health, it's going to be pretty hard to get over that because there's not a lot of great spell removal in the game thus far, and you kind of have to rely on the power of some heavy-hitting battle cards if you have them, which neutrals kind of struggle with, though they do have Executor. So it is Tyler's turn. He's at 800 health on his Sacred, but he is going to drop a Cornucopia. This is an excellent token. It came out in the Collector's Pack 2020. Gives you 2 magicka. It does cost 5, but it gives you a 3rd token slot. So this is just really opening up the doors for Tyler to potentially have just an insane amount of magicka, especially if he can get a magicka orb out, which is perfect and is pretty much made with neutral cards in mind, or neutral deck in mind, I should say. So you can see he's sitting at 11 magicka, and we're back to Joe's turn. Joe is still sitting at 1600 health. Again, the only damage that he took was from mulliganing 1 card. So he's sitting very comfortable. And now it's just a matter of figuring out what cards does he play. He might have some phase 2 cards in his hand, so obviously he wouldn't be able to play that, but we'll see what he has. With this style of deck, it's kind of a control style, so it's you kind of have to control the pace of the game, but I guess similar to attacking, if you can just eliminate your opponent's resources, they're always going to be on the back foot, especially playing against a neutral deck, where the neutral deck is always going to be struggling to get resources because there's not a lot of cohesiveness in the neutral cards thus far. Joe's going to play a card called the Witch, which says when called to the field, all players discard 2 cards and you discard 1 card. So obviously this kind of stinks if you have to discard a card yourself, but you're making your opponent discard 2 cards, which that's terrible, especially for this neutral deck. They're already going to be struggling to get cards in their hand, so what a killer. Ooh, and look at that. Tyler's going to send a Tradesman and an Outpost Tower to the graveyard. I'm really curious to see what other cards he has in his hand that would, cause him to keep those rather than keep those rather than sending those to the graveyard. I think you get what I'm saying. Anyways, Joe's going to deal lethal damage to the revealed Sacred, and turn is going to pass back to Tyler. Tyler's going to reveal his 2nd Sacred, which is the Central Palace, which sits at 1700 health. Because Amber Monument has been destroyed, he loses that +1 magicka, or that gift 1 bonus from the Amber Monument, so he's down to 10 magicka, which is still plenty. So now he's just trying to see what he plays. It looks like he has a Trat the Map Maker and a Village Intercessor in terms of battle cards. I couldn't tell what other one he has. He does have a Magicka Orb, which could give him plenty of Magicka. He does have an Unknown Power, which is a lesser version of Empower. Empower gives you +200/+200, whereas Unknown Power just gives you +200 attack. Alright, so Tyler is going to opt for playing Trat the Map Maker, which is Report. Report is the ability to look at the top card of your deck, and then you can choose to keep it on the top or on the bottom. And for the neutral deck, that is extremely important, again, because there's not a lot of cohesiveness in the neutral deck. Now, even though this is an exclusive neutral deck, villages kind of occupy a weird spot, specifically the Village of Glast, because it is a village, so it technically is not neutral, but it is usable by every spirit, so in some way, shape, or form that you could still say that this is pretty much a neutral pure deck, or you could say it is a neutral deck with a hint of Glast in it. Tyler did opt to not attack, and partly because with only 400 attack, he can't get over the 700 Esther Crest Soldier, so he just couldn't do anything. Turn gets passed to Joe, and Joe does play Defender, and it says when called to the field, all their players must shuffle a card from their hand back into their fortress, which this is just, again, detrimental to Tyler as he's constantly having to shuffle cards back into his fortress. The thing that's nice about having the Central Palace is it does give him the ability to draw 2 cards per turn rather than just 1, But the only side effect of that is that if you decide to draw 2, your opponent then gets to draw 1 card as well, which at this point is maybe not serving as a positive for you, and overall is a net negative because you're giving your opponent the ability to draw more cards and get a greater advantage over you. He is going to pop the Trap the Map Maker, and then he is going to deal a little bit of damage, dropping Central Palace down to 1200. Tyler does opt to draw 2 cards. At this moment, it is starting to become a matter of building a board state just to stay alive rather than worrying about your opponent being able to draw a card off of what you're doing. So sitting at 1200 health, that still is a decent amount. Okay, so he plays the Magical Orb. I don't know if this is the right play or not, but it also depends on the cards that are in his hand. He does have, it looks like, a Veteran Soldier, which is a phase 3, so he can even play that if he wants. Maybe playing a Magical Orb is the best move to take because it's setting him up for potential Magicka in the future, giving him the ability to extend his turn a little bit further than what he'd be able to if that card was not out. So hopefully this card can pay off in the future. At this moment now, he just needs battle cards on the field to yield that bonus and get more Magicka and start building a board state. So now it's Joe's turn. Joe draws a card for turn. He's still on phase 1, and he drops down a Lost Traveler. Says all other players must discard a card. So again, this is now 3 turns in a row where Joe has played a card, forcing Tyler to have to discard another card or get rid of a card. I'm not sure in this moment what is more detrimental to this neutral deck. If it's sending a card to the graveyard or sending a card back into your fortress. I would think because of what neutral cards are currently available in the game, I would think discarding a card would be a lot more detrimental because there's not a lot of great cards that are neutrals at this moment. So Summoner's Call isn't really used in this deck. Joe deals lethal damage to that second Sacred of Tyler's, the Central Palace, and so now Tyler has officially entered phase 3 with Skylight Fountain. Skylight Fountain is a 1000 health Sacred with the effect that says this card cannot be attacked directly if you have battle cards or legends on your side of the field. Now, in terms of meta, this card is meta. That for Sacred purposes, you always want to run this Sacred as your 3rd Sacred. Only once or twice I have seen Skylight Fountain be ran at phase 2 because the person had built their deck in such a way where if they got past phase 2, they pretty much were going to lose because they knew the win conditions for their deck. But for anyone building a deck, you always want to run Skylight Fountain at phase 3 because it is just that good of a card. And so hopefully having Skylight Fountain at phase 3 can somehow keep Tyler alive. But the thing that's unfortunate right now is Joe has lethal damage on the field to destroy the Sacred and quickly end the game. So we might be in for a short one unless Tyler can start playing some stuff. He only has 10 Magicka right now because there's no neutral battle cards for that Magicka Orb to generate Magicka. And so here we go. So Tyler plays a Veteran Soldier, which is a 600/600, and he plays an Empower on it. So now this card is sitting at an 800/800, which is now greater than the Esther Crest Soldier, who is sitting at a 700/700. So this is vital for Tyler to have on the field. And now he can start turning the tide of the battle and maybe come back into it because he now has plenty of Magicka to play any card that he wants to play, and that Veteran Soldier is going to buy him time to get some other cards out onto the field. So I'll be curious to see what Joe is able to do with this. If he has a Rock Mover or an Ula in his hand, that could eventually take care of it once he gets to phase 2. So Tyler does destroy the Esther Crest Soldier because it has defensive, which means that card has to be attacked before any other battle card or Sacred can be attacked. So now turn is passed to Joe. And let's see what he's able to play. Being in phase 1, there's a good chance that he's exhausted a lot of his resources, especially because he hasn't really had any great card draw cards. He's just been kind of top decking at the moment, though he does have a full hand. And he might just have a lot of phase 2 cards, so he's kind of locked out at the moment. You can see Joe is sitting comfortably with 5 cards in hand, and Tyler only has 2, so he's barely holding on right now. So he does play a Tradesman. Even though he had to send one to the graveyard, he still had one other copy in his deck, and so he plays a Tradesman, which has 600 health, which could be a problem for this no cards for you deck, depending on what attackers that he has. Now Tyler does play 2 unknown powers onto Veteran Soldier, which is an additional 400 attack, putting Veteran Soldier, if my math is correct, at 1000 attack. deck. So this card is now in 1,000, or excuse me, I think it's 1,200. I'm trying to keep track of all the math happening right now. Well, anyways, Tyler uses his tradesman to destroy the witch, and then he's probably going to swing in with that veteran soldier to deal some lethal damage, or maybe he's going to hold on until he can build a better board state. You can see that Magicka for Tyler, he's sitting at 10, but now he has +4 on top of that. And that is because at the beginning of your counter phase, so your counter phase begins when your opponent's turn starts, the Magicka value is reassessed, and Tyler had 2 battle cards on the field, so he gets +4 Magicka for that. Joe does play a Master's Table, so at this moment, he's kind of in the position where he needs to start setting himself up for a strong Phase 2, and so I think it's wise for him to play that token, and +2, he might not have any cards in his hand to play. Now, he gets a little cheeky with this gameplay, but it's a really good play. He has Frontline Warriors, which is a Phase 2 card, so at this moment, it's a dead card for him, but the card says, draw a card when sent to the graveyard. And so not only does Joe play Master's Table to give himself a Magicka bonus, but he sends that card as the kind of the discard for the Master's Table to draw a card and get it back, so that's pretty good. He does not attack because of the cards that are on the field. He doesn't have enough attack. It is to Tyler's turn. He draws a card, plays another village, or he plays a Village Intercessor, and it says, search your fortress for any neutral battle card that is legal to play and put it into your hand. Now, there's a good chance, because this card only costs 6, that would mean Tyler would have 8 Magicka, so he'd have plenty of Magicka, most likely, to search and play a card. And he does play a Boris of 100 Fists. This card came out in celebration of 100 subscribers to the YouTube channel. This card has 700 attack and 400 health, and it does have the effect that says if your revealed sacred has 100 health left, you may call this card for free during your prepare phase. But at the moment, Tyler can't afford waiting for that special niche play, but he has enough Magicka to play it with no issues, and there's a good chance that it's the only card that he can play. As a matter of fact, it is the only card he can play, because as you can see, he has 0 cards in his hand. So Tyler is truly top decking at this moment, which is never in a position that you want to be in. However, look at the board state that he has. He has 4 battle cards out in the field, one in which is extremely strong right now because of an Empower and 2 unknown powers played onto it, and he is sitting comfortably with plenty of Magicka. As soon as his turn ends, unless one of his cards die from combat, he'll be having +8 Magicka in addition to the 10. So Tyler sweeps the board, he destroys the first Sacred, and now he sends Joe to the second Sacred phase, which Joe reveals Cattle Farm, which reads Bleed and Gift 2. It says, at the beginning of your counter phase, your opponent may send a card from their hand to the graveyard to cancel this Sacred's Gift 2 ability, and it sits at 1,700 health. So I'm curious, at this point in the gameplay, whose position would you rather be in? Knowing that the neutral deck is top decking and doesn't have a lot of connectivity or a lot of syncrasy or whatever synergy you could say in the deck, so it's kind of a fragile board state, or this no cards for you deck that does have some synergy, does have some more powerful cards, just because neutrals inherently aren't as powerful as Kingdom affiliated cards. Which board state would you rather be in? At this moment, I feel like the neutral state would be pretty good to be in, sitting at 18 Magicka, 4 battle cards, 1 really good, but we'll see what Joe can do. Now, Joe is sitting at 12 Magicka because of the Master's Table that he played and Cattle Farm, so that's really good, and he plays 2 Mountain Yetis, which have 600 attack, 500 health. You can see the displayed Mountain Yeti looks different than the one that is played. That is because this Mountain Yeti that is displayed came out in set 2.5 and is the Mosaic version. So Joe clears the board with 2 battle cards that are out in the field, which really the only damage that does to Tyler is it takes away a potential Magicka bonus that he had for later in the game, but we will see what happens. Unfortunately, Tyler top decks into another Magicka Orb, which does absolutely nothing for Tyler at the moment. You could make a case, maybe he could switch out 3 for another Magicka Orb, but then you might run into the point where if you have no cards out in the field, now you're only getting +2 Magicka from 3 tokens total because you have no battle cards out in the field. So Joe does play a Charlotte. This is the Spirit Charlotte, which is a very good spirit for the Kingdom of for this. Wow, this is a great spirit for the spirit of Tanis. In case you're not familiar, spirit cards are less powerful spirits that are made by the big spirits that made the world of Engom that the kingdoms find themselves in. So Charlotte has an instant, all your battle cards on the field gain defensive, which immediately can be a nuisance for Tyler because Tyler could quickly just swing in for that with that veteran soldier and just wipe the field and eliminate all the health of that sacred. But Joe is tactfully playing, so he plays 2 rock movers, and as a player that plays that card, you get to choose. If your revealed sacred gains 300 health, which Cattle Farm has been dropped down to 5, or you get to send any battle card back to its owner's hands, which Joe's obviously going to choose that option for both of his rock movers, which means this is GG. So what a great game. The neutrals definitely put up a fight, especially near the end. Developed a really good board state, but I think we just got to see the power of the no cards for you, and what a great game. I want to thank you again for watching this. Let me know in the comment section below what you thought of the gameplay video. Let me know what you thought of both of the different decks, and if you're familiar with the game, what cards you would add into them to make them better. I definitely think now that set 3 Distant Lands is out, I think the neutral deck in particular could get a lot better, especially because there's a lot more neutral support in that deck. Anything that I want you to know about is in the description box below, as well as in this end card display. But before I do end this video, I do want to end with a Bible talk. In scripture, it tells us many times that we are to slow down, take our time, because when we start going throughout life very fast and we are not thinking rationally, we can begin to think in the flesh, which means to think in human terms and not think and look at things through the way that God sees those things, because he's perfect. He sees how everything works out, and scripture tells us that he has peace, that we can have understanding from him. So I encourage you, as well as for myself, to go throughout our life slow and peaceful and focusing on what God is trying to say to us and do with us in moments of maybe stress or where things are just going by really fast and we can't keep on top of everything. Like I said, anything I want you to know about is in the description box below. If this is your first time watching my channel, I appreciate it. And whatever time of the day that you're watching this, whether it be the morning, evening, or night, I hope you have a good rest of your day. Thanks.